Hello, this is our fourth DID episode. I'm Sharon Estrada from Boss. I'm a senior.
My name is Bridget Sells, and I'm also a senior at Voss. And this is our podcast, like Sharon said, to raise awareness about dissociative identity disorder. We are doing this podcast as part of our signature project for the year, and our goal with it is just to help spread information and the stigma around the disorder, and just overall help people learn new things about the disorder. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about alters. We had mentioned alters in the second episode when we talked about the different definitions of words having to do with the disorder. Alters can also be referred to as personality states, and they are just that. They're the different personality states within a person who has DID. They each are their own person. They have their own roles within the system generally and more broadly. They each have different personalities, ages, genders, opinions, tone of voice. Everything about them is different. And today we're just going to be talking about the different types and how they can sort of be categorized in a more like general term. So the first one that I'm going to be talking about today is a fictive alter. So fictive alters are based on fictional characters, or just some kind of like outward person. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be a character. It can be based off a celebrity. It can be based off someone that they heard about in a story. But these are basically just a person that either the host or someone within the system favors. So it can be someone that they looked up to or someone that maybe they relate to, and they just make an alter either based around the character or an alter that essentially is the character.
Okay, and then what I'm going to be talking about is infant alters. Like a child, like before the child, they don't know how to talk. They don't really know how to walk either. They are very much just out of the womb that they how they behave. Most of these memories that this specific alter holds are memories of emotions and of sensations, like physical sensations, because they could not talk. They couldn't understand really what was going on besides what they saw and what they experienced in their time.
The next alter that we are going to be talking about today are the protectors. These alters are the most common alters to form in a system, and most of the time they are the first alter to form out of the host. And these alters form to shield the host from their traumas. So these alters form in an attempt to shield the host from experiencing or having to relive any more traumas. And they help the host also deal with emotions like shame or guilt, sadness, anger, depression. And they will oftentimes take on the trauma themselves. But because they're taking on trauma themselves, they can often act aggressive towards people in real life, towards other alters in the system, towards the host themselves. But they're just there, as it said in the name, to protect the host from having to deal with or relive any more of their traumas.
The next word is going to be a dead alter. This dead alter hides from most of the system. They don't like to be around or communicate with the rest of the system. This host is created near a death, where the host or the body is in a near death experience. And so what they do is this alter dies, and it becomes like a ghost alter inside the system, and it contains the traumatic experience of like almost dying. And yeah, it's just kind of like a ghost.
The next alter within that you might find within a system is a child, but it can also be referred to as a little alter. And these alters, they might kind of speak and act like children and just, have childlike mannerisms, but depending on the age of the host, they can still very easily understand complex topics. And little alters are very common within a system, and oftentimes systems will have more than one little alter at varying ages or at the same ages. And these alters most oftentimes developed as a version of the host when they were a child. So this can be a version of the host that was going through trauma. So you can have littles who are very traumatized, but they can also be a version of the host who just never experienced trauma. Like, just they create a whole new version of themselves as a child, how they feel they would have been if they wouldn't have gone through the abuse or whatever traumatic event is causing them to have the disorder. But that being said, littles can also just develop with no relation to the host as their own person.
The next word is a fragment alter. This alter is had a very limited time and a very limited job, maybe for one specific very traumatic moment. They will only be to that specific part of that. Yeah. They don't really have their own thing because there's so limited time. However, because of this lack of time that they have and lack of experience around the world, they don't have a range of emotions. So mostly they would experience only one. Like, they would only be mad. They would only be fearful. or they would only be sad. This is pretty much all they've experienced.
So the next kind of altar is a gatekeeper altar, and this altar is very important because they will keep altars that hold more trauma or that are very traumatized from fronting, and they will also keep littles from fronting in professional or serious situations. So if the host is at work and they're presenting or just in any kind of professional serious environment, they will keep the littles from coming forward. And these are very important because when traumatized or little altars do come forward, it can be dangerous for the host. So they keep the host safe by keeping those altars from fronting.
Okay, next up is a very interesting one, a demonic altar, or they're evil altars. They have various names. This is more of a spiritual and supernatural altar. However, well, they feel like that, but they aren't actual supernaturals. These can result from spiritual abuse or an abuser who blames the child for the abuse. These are also often in cults where the person wouldn't really have created altars, but they forced them to make an altar with the abuse, and they they convinced themselves they can well not themselves they convinced the altar the abusers around that they are a demon, that they are evil, that they are supernatural. They often would put them in makeup, or they would put them in costumes and look in the mirror like, look at you, you're a demon, you are a monster. The role for this type of altar is to keep loyalty to the abusers or the cult that they're in. This is to keep the person safe, like the body safe. They can change their role later if they choose to, once they get to a safe environment, and they can be something else. They can take care of the littles, they can do other things.
So the 10th and last altar that we're going to be talking about today is the persecutor. And this altar is kind of like a mix of the protector and the gatekeeper, in that their goal is to keep the host safe and keep the other altars in line and keep them from fronting when they shouldn't be fronting. However, these kind of altars are a little bit different because they are known to lash out and have very self-destructive behaviors. So while they are helpful, they can be very aggressive at times and make a lot of mistakes. So that is going to be the end of our episode today. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to DM us or comment below. Next week, we will be talking about misconceptions about DID and the portrayal of them in the media. So stick around for that episode.
Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.